tell me, I'm going to guess that the most exciting thing that's ever happened to you flying was on a layover when you met your wife. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was flying 604 for a client in Nigeria. It was my first type rating in the Challenger or Bombardier product. And we used to go to London quite a bit. And I remember that the captain, I was very young. I was, it was just 13 years ago, I think. The captain had a disagreement with the owner and about the hotels, and he decided to purposefully break the airplane down in London for 21 days, which I had no say in. But I was young, I was in London, I was out there partying, and that's how I met my wife at a bar. My wife was going to school in London. She was a student out there, and we met there for 21 days. We became really good friends, and here we are with 2 kids.
Oh, that's amazing. It's crazy how many marriages come out of aviation associations. So tell me a little bit about, the most that I hear from Nigeria are the offers for airplanes bought in gold nuggets and internet scams. But I did read recently that there are some women chief pilots in Nigeria now. So it's a progressing area from an aviation standpoint. Tell me about that, your experiences flying in Africa.
My experience with flying in Nigeria was probably as bad as you think it was. It was horrendous. There was no help. But mind you, I was there in 2006, 2007, so it was a long time ago. Things have changed rapidly, and they have learned a lot. Every country, every nation has their good and the bad, including here, and it's the same over there. But my experience was really, really bad. We always had armed guards around us. There was no freedom. You couldn't just really walk out there. Even in hotels, you never knew what you were going to expect. But the only normalcy was every once in a while, you would see British Airways or Air France crew, but even they would arrive at the hotel with 6 bodyguards on each side, everybody with machine guns. And so it wasn't something that I felt safe about back in Nigeria back then. The air traffic control was awful. I remember coming in one night late from London, just tired, weather all over, and air traffic control just would not answer. And I remember Kalita 747 just coming in and saying, "Hey guys, we're going to treat this as an uncontrolled airport because we're tired of holding for 45 minutes. We haven't heard from the air traffic control." So I could not believe it at that point in time. Every pilot, KLM, Kalita, us, bunch of other airlines, we were just traffic pattern ourselves, self-announcements, and self-taxiing at Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Nigeria. That's as bad as it could get. We were just randomly holding. Weather radar was just lit up, red everywhere. And people were just, telling each other on common traffic frequency, treating the air traffic control frequency as a common traffic frequency and telling us, "Hey guys, I'm taking left main, I'm on base, or I'm on finals, I'm on short finals, I'm clearing taxiway alpha, and I'm going to the ground." And 45 minutes later, the guy just came back and apparently he was asleep.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. Yeah, those are dangerous conditions for flying, especially when you know that when you get off the airplane, there's also could be danger as well, not knowing what's going on and typically having armed guards when you exit the aircraft. That's the stuff that puts hair on your chest.
Yes, but now the situation is not the same. It's completely different. It is safer. A lot of my friends work there, a lot of people that I know that are happy over there. It's something that, you choose. It is a choice and you make it. I would not. I wouldn't do it. But there are people that are out there that do it, and more power to them. I'm not going to judge them, but it's a tough job to have.
Yeah, that's great. I remember speaking with the woman who's the CEO of Rwanda Air recently, and she was describing some of the complexities of air traffic in Africa and how the tribal feuds between countries make it so that you can't fly from one country to another. Often you have to take a pretty long detour to land somewhere else and then fly there. Did you ever experience anything like that?
No, my destinations were mostly European, so we were just full of fuel, and VR was the best word she ever uttered that day. VR rotate off to London or off to Paris, and yeah, so we never faced anything like this. I did see fist fights between handlers by the airplane for something. The guy saying, "Hey, you haven't paid the parking fee," and they just went at it. They were just like, at each other's throat. I just saw really awful stuff that was very unprofessional. I have not seen that anywhere in the world. Yeah.
That's crazy. So how long were you based there?
7 months.
And you told me that often you've changed airplanes because an airplane was sold, and you've changed employers, changed airplanes. What was after that 7 months there? What was your next stop?
To be honest with you, I was kind of sad because I got attached to people that worked around me. They had not seen the world. They had not traveled. They only know this 100 square miles that they were born and raised in. It wasn't their fault. The poverty wasn't their fault. The politics was beyond them. But once you get to know them, even the guys who robbed us while on the road from airport to the crew apartment that we lived at, the guys that would rob us with AK-47s in the end were friendlier and nicer. Sorry to laugh. We used to carry a lot of dollar bills in our wallet because we knew we were going to get stopped. It was like a checkpoint, those big guys, AK-47s, and they didn't threaten you to kill you or anything. They just knock on your window and like, "Captain, how much money you have?" And like, "Here you go. A wad of $1 bills is 20, it's all yours." And they were just happy with that. They left you alone. And, being a human being, you just survived. You became a survivor out there, It was accepted. They were who they were, and we were just out there, "Hey, here's a 20, just leave me alone." And they left you alone. I was never hurt. Nobody ever tried to, do something insanely wrong. I mean, they were still taking my money, which is awful, but it was just $20. They were happy. So
you weren't shot at between the airplane and your crew apartment, but have you ever been shot at when you were in the sky?
No, we were not, but I remember looking at this one Falcon 50, actually a good old boy from Texas flying it, and he showed us the hole underneath the wing where somebody had shot the airplane while on finals, he thought. So that's what I had seen. It never happened to me.
Did you ever have to change your approach or your climb or your landing, anything to accommodate for perhaps hostile conditions?
No, except for the part where the air traffic control was not available. And so that's about the only time where I had to alter anything. Other than that, not the neighborhood. I think it's pretty safe for airplanes to come in and out. I don't think anybody's ever been shot at, except for the one Falcon 50 that I just spoke of.
All right. Well, okay. So going back to this layover in London, this long layover in London, was there frequently tension between the owner and the airplane crew?
Well, so most pilots are pilots and they're not business people, and most pilots are not mechanics and mechanics are not pilots. Some of them are, but most people are set in their position. Now, I think we had one guy that, thought he was a businessman and thought he was all this, and, he took a brand new aircraft out there for someone and tried to educate the owner and try to tell him that somehow he was taken advantage of by the people that sold him the airplane, by the people that maintained the aircraft, and by the people and he just gave him false information, which kind of just made him really angry towards everybody. It was his first or second airplane. He didn't really understand a lot of things. And so, yeah, they fell apart pretty quickly. I was the youngest one out there. I never had an agenda other than just flying an airplane. I remained a pilot. I flew the airplane as I was supposed to. I never argued back and forth. I was just really happy to receive a type rating as a young pilot. I was learning the airplane. I had no dog in that fight. So I was actually respected and loved more because I was quiet and I only spoke when I was spoken to, and I answered questions that they asked me. So a lot of times they would ask me questions that I would give them the correct answer to, and it contradicted the answers provided by the captain, which I did not know. They were cross-questioning us away from each other, but they had lost faith in him and his abilities at that point in time.
Did it ever get dicey?
Yes, it did. It actually got pretty dicey. When he held the airplane there for 21 days in London, I had not taken my malaria pills. And of course, when they had agreed to give us what the captain had demanded, they were like, well, bring the airplane back and we'll give you whatever you want. You know, you can end this hostage situation. So we were not dressed in our uniforms. I was just in my shorts and flip-flops. I'm like, hey, you know, just flying the airplane empty from Farnborough to Lagos. And sure enough, you know, every time we landed in our uniforms, there'd be like 500 people out there. They would just run towards the airplane. We were like celebrities out there, you know. Everybody's taking my bags, my computer bag, and like, Captain, how have you been? What did you do overseas? How was your day? You know, all these questions. And crickets, there's nobody. I pull up to the ramp, there's like one big dude with his hands behind him, standing, just staring at me. I open the door and I go out, and I had a great landing that day, by the way. I had a really smooth landing. I was so proud of myself. And I walk out there to this guy, and you know, I offer my hand out there to shake his hand. He doesn't shake my hand. He goes, turn around. I'm like, what? He said, turn around. And I turned around and he put handcuffs on me. And he goes, how many people in the airplane? I said, 2. He goes, ask them to come out. We need them out. Shut the airplane. And of course, after that, the 3 of us were taken to the boardroom meeting with a police officer. And we were accused of holding the airplane for ransom for 21 days in London. And
oh my gosh. Wait, I'm going to go back to this because you mentioned you didn't take your malaria pills. So I have a feeling you're going somewhere with that.
Yeah. So this is the funny story. And my friends use this story as an icebreaker. And, you know, they take us to this prison, and this is a small jail cell with no floors. It's just really nasty. There's no toilet. There's nothing. Well, we were in there for a few days, but there was a baboon in there.
Wait, in the jail or in the cell?
In the cell, right next.
What?
There was a baboon. And I was like, what's he doing in there? What's his crime? So apparently the guy had taught the baboon how to steal purses and watches and handbags. So they locked the owner of the baboon that had taught him to do all that, but they released the baboon out in the wild, and it's not a wild animal. He was a pet. It belonged to someone. And just out of habit, he would just go out there and snatch purses and necklaces and wristwatches. They locked him up in the jail cell with me.
He was a pickpocket. So it was you and a baboon in a jail cell with the other 2 guys, or you had the baboon all to yourself?
No, we all had the baboon to each other. He was right there with and they placed that broken windshield of a car because that was his entertainment. He would just like stare at his own image in the windshield and just have a conversation. And I'm like, I can't believe this. And sure enough, the second day I had 105-degree temperature and I got malaria. And the only way out from there was when they asked us. So somehow the mechanic that I worked in the airplane before, he was a disgruntled employee who had been let go, and he called the FAA. The airplane was unregistered, and he grounded the airplane. And the FAA grounded the airplane because they said, hey, one of your maintenance guys that worked for you has said that this airplane is unairworthy. So they sent one of the staff members to the jail, and they're like, hey, which one of you guys made this phone call to the FAA and grounded the airplane? And I'm like, look around you. Do you see a phone around here someplace? How am I going to call anybody and complain about you? They're like, well, the FAA says that, you know, the crew has to certify the airplane airworthy. And you guys have to visually inspect the airplane and sign this piece of paper. And I'm like, we could do that if you get an airline ticket back home. And at first they said no, and then they figured out there was no other way. And they, you know, took us to the airport, we signed the piece of paper, you know, Amsterdam, direct Dallas, we were gone. Yeah.
So I just want to know if you learned those negotiating skills in pilot training, because hi, I'm in a jail cell with a baboon without a phone. Get me a ticket out of here and I'll recertify your aircraft.
You know,
ever would have thought that.
It was the only option. There was no other option. That was the only option. I don't even think they could hold all of us there for that long. So that was the only option for them and for us. And as angry as the owner was, he knew it wasn't really completely our fault. He actually liked me a lot, but I think he had to treat all of us equally. He was not going to be, show his favoritism towards just one guy. Believe this or not, a year down the road, I ran into the owner, and he offered me a job to work for him. And I just kind of smiled and shook his hand and said, no, thank you. I think he learned from hiring others and doing all that what we were asking for, what the captain was asking for, what they demanded was not too far-fetched. It was his first aircraft. It was way back when, 2006. It was too long time ago. I mean, things have changed now. And I think he understood himself that, we were being reasonable. He just didn't know. So he took a drastic step. And I think even he regretted it at that point in time.
That sounds so crazy. So you flew back to the U.S. Do you know what happened to the airplane? Did he find another crew?
Oh yeah. He'd had that airplane for the longest time, and he had other crews. And I know that one time he called me 4 or 5 years ago saying, "Hey, the crew walked out in London. They left the airplane. I understand the situation. Can you find me somebody else?" And I said, I can't help you at this point in time. They have payment issues. They're just the way they're structured. I'm not going to go into more details because it's really easy to find out who this person is, and I don't want to do that on the podcast. But they're not structured well. They're not doing anything illegal. They're good people. They just don't know how to do things. They would never go out there and hire an external management company because it is so expensive for them. But then why have a jet, right? If you can't pay the big bills, and they always find some pilot, poor guy, goes out there, works for a few months, and then feels like, holy cow, what did I get myself into? And just waits for the airplane to go to Europe and just walks out.
It is a very different operating environment for sure. And it probably takes someone with a very strong constitution. So no lingering effects from the malaria? How did you treat that from your jail cell? You were okay by the time you arrived back in the States?
I guess I have a strong immune system. I mean, I didn't take any medication until I got back here. I got back here and I straight went to the hospital. So, and that was it. They took care of me over here. No, been 11 years now, and nothing's happened. So
that's crazy. Okay. So you went from flying there, you came back to the States, you've flown a global. What is it that you do now? And did you drive your wife into this business?
Yes, I did. So back in 2011, I always looked at the way the economy fluctuated. In 2007, people sold their airplanes, and I'm like, yeah, I am a pilot, and I do have a lot of time in my head. I do have a vast amount of knowledge about handling trip support, flight planning, permits, and crew support, even maintenance. And so I thought, how about I go out there and help people out and make things more efficient and cost effective? So I started my jet fuel company. It's called Icarus Jet, and we sell jet fuel. We're resellers of jet fuel around the world. We have a capability of selling jet fuel anywhere you want to go, and we're very highly competitive with other vendors out there. And we also do logistical trip support. So we do ground handling, flight permits, especially to countries like Africa, Russia, China, where it's very hard for American clients to go out there and get a permit right away. But we have the capability of getting a permit into China within 24 hours, into Russia within 24 hours. Most difficult countries like Tunisia, Algeria, other difficult countries like Sudan, where it might take you 48 hours, we do it within 24 hours. We have boots on the ground around the world. Yeah.
That's amazing. And your wife's Russian, correct?
She is from Russia. Both of our kids speak fluent Russian. My daughter is Amelia. She's 3 years old. And my son is Matvey. He's 7 years old. And they both speak fluent Russian.
And have you informed them already that because they were born into an aviation family, they need to learn how to fly?
You know what? I don't think these kids would ever get the same joy of flying as a human being that René, that you and I did. The flying by the seat of your pants, the forgiveness of not having so many rules and regulations, just flying because we didn't have wings, but we invented something, and here we are up in the air. and you followed roads, and you had a map, paper-made map on your legs here, and you just kind of drew your heading, and with the wind you figured things out. Those days are gone. They have an iPad, GPS, and the airplane's just going flying by itself. So I'm not sure if I want them to be in aviation anymore. I want them to be that person that has enough money to buy an aircraft and sit in the back of the cabin and take me to St. Martin.
I like that philosophy. I was going to chastise you a little bit because I'm going to tell you, my daughter's 23. She got bit by the bug and she flies. So you may not be able to stop it, but amen, brother, on the being able to afford one and the back while you fly them around. That's what childhood's all about.
Well, I did put my little boy in a racing school, so he's now started to race karts, and he goes 40 miles an hour. He's really fast. You know, he does 55-second laps, and I envision his future to be in Monaco Turn 5. I'm there screaming at him, and he's right behind Lewis Hamilton in a Formula 1 car. That's what I envision for my son. You know, which is very much like being a pilot, does require a lot of skills. And he's developed his skills so much as a race car driver at the age of 7. It just blows me away.
Yeah, a lot of those guys fly also. They like that Bombardier line because they're so fast and have such great takeoff.
Niki Lauda has a global. Lewis Hamilton has a Challenger 605, which is Caney Apple Red. And you know, that red airplane can be recognized anywhere in the world. It's Lewis Hamilton's 605. And it's usually parked in Farnborough, but also in Nice, you will see that airplane. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had it here in Austin a couple times.
Oh, that's cool. Yes.
Well, great. Kevin, you have been vastly entertaining. You've made me laugh today. You've educated me today. And I hope that you've inspired our listeners on Pilot Talk Podcast about so many things, about life, about flying, about negotiating, and about the use of broken windshields in jail cells. It's been great. Thank you so much for being on today. I hope if you're listening today that you'll look Kevin up, that you will follow him on social media and connect with his company. Why don't you tell our listeners how they can do that?
Well, so IcarusJet.com, ICARUS Jet.com. And I'm usually just on LinkedIn. I don't really do social media. Otherwise, I don't have Facebook, Instagram. My company does have Instagram and Twitter account and a LinkedIn account. So you guys can follow us there. You can look up my company and the things that we do. So yeah, and that baboon was my emotional support animal.
Yes. Did you have to get a special permit to take him with you?
I had no choice but to hug him. He was my only companion.
Oh my gosh. There's got to be so many more stories there, but I don't want to implicate you in any way, shape, or form here. Your wife and your kids might watch this.
Oh my God. My friends have already used my story to just break the ice at bars talking to girls and stuff. Like, hey, let me tell you about my friend who was in prison in Nigeria with malaria and a baboon. Who wouldn't want to hear that?
I mean, at least they took your stuff away from you so he couldn't pick your pocket.
True. We had left everything in the airplane, even the suitcases and everything. Awful.
Well, Kevin, thanks again. For everyone who's watching or listening today, this has been the Pilot Talk Podcast. I'm your host, René Banglesdorf. My guest today was Kevin Singh. You can subscribe to this podcast on YouTube or on iTunes. Would love to connect with you. And also, you can reach out to me directly at Charlie Bravo Aviation. Our website is wepush10.com, or you can follow us on social media. My personal social media handle is at René Banglesdorf. Thanks again so much for participating today. It has been phenomenal.
Thank you, René. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.